right, this is going to be an incredible show. Probably the biggest one I've ever done. I've known about this for more than a year, but quite frankly, I was too afraid to tell you. But I think now the time is right and the mood is proper for you to know this. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to give it just a moment for a few others to catch up with us. In the meantime, let me thank a couple of sponsors.
Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
Strong, effective leadership. 3 words that could mean the difference between prison and your freedom. I'm Al Saleen, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
So on October 10, 2018, Category 5 hurricane hit the Florida Panhandle and absolutely demolished Mexico Beach. I mean, leveled it. It was the most unbelievable thing, and thank God there weren't a tremendous amount of casualties. I don't know how that happened, but it was like a bomb went off and the entire town was leveled, basically. And so Mexico Beach got $100 million in FEMA money. And Mexico Beach residents still have astronomically high property taxes and fees. And people wonder, geez, $100 million in FEMA money. It doesn't look like it, right? No pier. Well, maybe that's because $46 million went to one guy's companies. No bids. The company is Kaiser Kane. It's called Kaiser Kane. And it already had a contract for like yard debris, trash, or something like that. Well, days before the hurricane, the city amended the contract. The amendment led to $46 million. Now, this one person had like 3, maybe 4 companies. Kaiser Kane Storm, Kaiser KK Storm, Kaiser Kane Inc., and Mark Garrison Cattle Company. Is that right? Mark Garrison Cattle Company. All one guy, 4 different companies. Now, here's what it looks like. I'm going to show you as we go along here. That's at least, okay, that's at least Garrison Cattle Company. And this is as of about a year ago. $721,000 for Garrison Cattle Company. Kaiser Kane Storm, $45 million. KK Storm, same company, just different names. $767,000, basically. You add that up, it's $46 million. It could be higher. Now, here's the thing. We heard in the presentations made by the city, right? That's the FEMA guy. And then that's Adrian Welly. He was the city clerk in 2018. He signed this contract along with Mayor Al Cathy. When I tell you that Adrian Welly, who went on to become a city councilman, knows all the finances, and if you ever wanted to learn anything about the city's finances, he's the guy to ask. You start with Adrian Welly. Now, the guy in the middle there, I forget his name, but he was with the FEMA consultant. All right. He ended up moving out of the country, I heard. And he said that they had $49 million in debris pickup. All right. That's what this is focused on, is debris pickup. That's where I've learned from, ever since the hurricane and the corruption investigations and all of that, where you're going to find most of corruption, crimes, theft, fraud, all of it is going to be in debris pickup. And I'll tell you why as we move along here. But who is Kaiser Kane? Who's Kaiser Sose? Who's Kaiser Kane? Well, here's the company. It's Kaiser Kane Storm is one of, there's a bunch of Kaiser Kanes, KK, Storm, Kaiser Kane Inc., Kaiser Kane, whole bunch of them. The guy in the middle, Mark Garrison, he's the main guy. He's had it since about 2014. I believe that's when it became his. Now before that, before 2014, it was JT Burnett's. Now, JT Burnett is a businessman in Tallahassee who was who went to prison. He went to prison for city hall corruption. He was like the money man for the mayor who went to prison. JT Burnett went to prison in 2021, November 2021. He started Kaiser Kane. Well, anyway, that's what the news says. See, look, this was during the trial in November of, it was November, early November. The trial was before that. The sentencing was in November, but it was in 2021. And that's when businessman JT Burnett, who started Kaiser Kane in the early 2000s, I believe, that's when he went to prison for racketeering, extortion, fraud, and making false statements. That's what he went to prison for in Tallahassee. And again, he was the businessman for the mayor who went to prison. Mayor Scott Maddox was sentenced to 5 years as well. I think that was around 2018-ish. But let's look at the news. Okay, so during the trial in 2021 of JT Burnett, somebody testified that Kaiser Kane was actually financially backed by JT Burnett for startup capital and had negotiated a profit-sharing agreement between the owners. The original investors of Kaiser Kane were Burnett, Frank Whitley, who together owned a collective 97% of Kaiser Kane. Now, Whitaker described the box, which was a reference to a coveted spreadsheet that described payouts for those original two investors on a project basis. Now, when Kaiser Kane closed in 2014, all outstanding invoices were collected and all property and assets of Kaiser Kane were sold. The remaining money was split between the original investors of Kaiser Kane. That would be JT Burnett and his partners. All right. But after that, Mark Garrison had all of these companies: Garrison Cattle, Kaiser Kane Storm LLC, and KK Storm LLC, as well as Kaiser Kane Inc. And Mexico Beach paid one guy with all these companies without bids. I'm pretty sure it's without bids. $46 million. That's where your money went, Mexico Beach. And Michelle Miller was trying to tell you guys about this, but every time she asked why Garrison Cattle in 2023 was getting $40,000 checks still for yard debris pickup, and some checks were double checks, she got run out of town because, because the previous mayor and his crew, the one that owns Ace Hardware, who got $500,000 because he was a vendor as well as the mayor. Al Cathy was a vendor as well as the mayor, got $500,000 from the city. And if she was asking any more questions, the councilman said it was a bad liability. They wouldn't let her do it. All right, now, so what's the deal here? I mean, Sheriff Ford even took over the police department. And I'll show you, in order to combat crime, he wanted to make sure he had a strong presence in Mexico Beach and the FBI. This was all during the big crackdown on FEMA corruption. Remember that? When they had us looking at the Lynn Haven mayor, Margot Anderson, who was actually the whistleblower, and developer James Finch, who was also a whistleblower. All 79 counts against them were complete and utter bullshit. But meanwhile, Kaiser Kane was raking it in. And Sheriff Ford was there and the FBI, but they didn't see any wrongdoing. So could be they were just very expensive. Now, there could also be other reasons. And I don't know for sure, but it was time for you to know these facts because Mexico Beach officials don't want to tell you. And this goes back earlier than the recent audit. Now, I wish the recent audit had gone back to 2019, but it only went back to 2021. And if they were doing the same accounting tricks, just imagine. But maybe they were doing it just right in 2019 with all the money. Maybe they just got a little sloppy later on. I don't think so. Now, here's the kicker, though. Are you ready for this? Here's the kicker. So, what's the deal with Kaiser Kane? Why wasn't the FBI interested in Kaiser Kane? Well, here's the rest of the story. Turns out there's somebody else hires Kaiser Kane. The FBI. The FBI itself hires Kaiser Kane. So Kaiser Kane got $46 million with Mark Garrison, the owner, after Hurricane Michael for Mexico Beach, but Kaiser Kane also gets hired by the FBI. See that? Kaiser Kane, the company which funneled money to Maddox-linked firm. Remember Maddox? He was the mayor who got a 5-year prison sentence. I think that was in 2018-ish. And then later his financier was sent to prison, J.T. Burnett, the one who started Kaiser Kane. But in 2011 and 2013, the FBI, well, hell, they hired Kaiser Kane. And Kaiser Kane did more than $7 million in renovations in Quantico for the FBI. So, I don't know. Maybe they just didn't. Maybe it would be egg on their face if they indict Kaiser Kane, the company that they hired too earlier and under different ownership, because JT Burnett, remember, they sold it in 2014, took the assets, and then Kaiser Kane was in 2015, different company, and there's a bunch of spinoffs, whole bunch of spinoffs. But the main point here, and I'm going to show you the contract. I'm going to show you. You're going to see the contract. You're about to see how much Mexico Beach was paying per cubic yard of debris pickup to Kaiser Kane Storm and KK Storm and Kaiser Kane Inc. and Garrison Cattle Company. All right, you're going to see all that. And you're not going to believe how much they were paying per cubic yard. Remember how stupid it is to pay a debris pickup company by cubic yard. Who counts that? That's how Chris Forehand in Lynn Haven, who got immunity from the Justice Department and cooperation from the FBI, that's how he got so many millions of dollars, because he was working with the folks counting the cubic yards. It's absurd. Always, it should be measured in pounds. How many tons? You go over a scale, it's fast. It's a lot more accurate than supposedly somebody, your friend's looking in there and going, I think that's about X amount of yards. Yards and skinny little branches. Wait till you see how much Mexico Beach paid all of these companies owned by one guy per cubic yard. All right, I'm going to show you the contract, and I'm going to show you that right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
This is so crazy. This is so crazy. Let me just give you a little bit of a timeline here, okay? It was on April 1st of 2019 that Mayor Margo Anderson in Lynn Haven, along with James Finch, but she's the one that went to Sheriff Ford April 1st, 2019, said, oh my gosh, it looks to me like the city has been paying gigantic sums fraudulently to the late Derwin White's nephew, Mickey White, like $5 million. $5 million. We're talking about 46 million. But look over there. So Sheriff Ford, that same month, later that month, said we better get some deputies over to Mexico Beach to help fight crime. So sheriff, they closed the Mexico Beach Police Department, not the sheriff, but the Mexico Beach City Council. Mayor Al Cathy, the owner of Ace Hardware, that got $500,000 because he was a vendor and the mayor at the same time. They were all working together, see, and they got rid of the police department and they said, hey, sheriff, how about you come over and make sure that there's no crime around here? So Sheriff Ford did that. Watch. That same month, by the way. Listen to how exciting this news was, because there was a big crackdown by Sheriff Ford on public corruption. Watch.
There's a new sheriff's deputy in town in Mexico Beach. Bay County Sheriff's Office officials say it's all part of their crime prevention plan. News Channel 7's Jarrell Baker has more.
Hurricane Michael has not only changed the landscape physically in Mexico Beach, but also altered everyday life in other ways, including the types of crime law enforcement is seeing.
We've seen kind of a shift into certain issues that we're having to deal with. The illegal dumping, the contracting without a license, some frauds related to the hurricane, burglary.
Really? Holy smokes, it's a good thing. The same month, this is the same month that Mayor Anderson blew the whistle, and they'd gotten together with the FBI this month, April of 2019. And they're cracking down on public corruption. So Sheriff Ford's going to make sure that his folks are right there in Mexico Beach to make sure that there's no fraud going on, that nobody, is getting double paid, that one guy doesn't have 4 different companies getting $46 million. Now, it's possible. It's possible, that some things slip by. Now they did have the crack greatest investigator as the head of the public trust unit. And the special agent from the FBI back then was about to retire. He's a little lazy, long in the tooth. And they said nothing got past Lambo. That was the nickname. And so maybe I want to make sure I heard.
Does not only change the landscape physically in Mexico Beach.
He did say contractors and possible fraud, and he wants to be on top of it, right?
But also altered everyday life in other ways, including the types of crime law enforcement is seeing.
We've seen kind of a shift into certain issues that we're having to deal with. The illegal dumping, the contracting without a license, some frauds related to the hurricane, burglaries.
Which is why the Bay County Sheriff's Office is bringing in some extra help by adding a dedicated deputy to Mexico Beach. Sheriff Ford said
nothing's getting by these guys. Nothing's getting by these guys. Who's Kaiser Kane? We know who they are. And we're going to make sure that there's no overpaying going on, no fraud, because over in Lynn Haven, Margot Anderson, James Finch, yeah. Meanwhile, in Mexico Beach, they got a new sheriff deputy in town.
And some extra help by adding a dedicated deputy.
They're in trouble. These guys, they're not going to get away with anything. Who's Kaiser Kane? And how much money? 46 million in debris pickup. Unbelievable. All right, well, let's hear the rest of this, and then I'll show you these invoices.
To Mexico Beach. Sheriff Ford says the deputy, Lieutenant Marty Williams, will be a problem solver in the community.
Good.
This position with the flexibility that it has can look at what's going on in a particular community and focus their efforts on that, whatever the problem may be.
Lieutenant Williams says he works closely with the police department, business owners, and other locals to identify crimes in the community and find ways to put a stop to them.
We have full jurisdiction over here and everything, so we're just another piece of the pie over here to help out.
Sheriff Ford said they had a crime prevention deputy in Mexico Beach a few years ago, but had to remove the position due to budget issues. City officials say they're glad to see the position come back.
It raises the awareness of our officers here, and it also, I think, gives our citizens a level of comfort that we've got a lot of eyes and ears in our city right now.
Not enough. Unless you think $46 million to one guy with 3 or 4 different companies, no bids, just amended contracts. And a mayor in 2023, Michelle Miller, who was not allowed to look behind the curtain at the invoices, but 18 other people had access to Springbrook software. But the dedicated deputy sheriff lieutenant here, they didn't see anything.
Yeah.
In Mexico Beach, Jarrell Baker, News Channel 7.
Lieutenant Williams has nearly 30 years of experience in law enforcement. Sheriff Ford says they also have dedicated deputies in Southport, Youngstown, and Callaway.
Which is where also there was clearly no FEMA fraud. Not with those guys keeping an eye on things closely. It was just expensive is all, and they really can't account for what was collected and disposed of after the hurricane. Take a look at this. All right. This was the report that when Mayor Miller was asking too many questions, they had to bring this guy back in. Let's see where he is. Where? Here he is. That's the FEMA consultant there. Now he moved shortly after these questions came up to another country, I heard. But he said in his report, because Mayor Miller was clearly asking too many questions, this was what they found. All right, that there was, see that debris pickup. This was straight from the report. It was Atkins was the FEMA consultant that had full access, by the way, and not just read only. There were 3 FEMA consultants that had full access, not read only, they had access to the utility billing. Oh, but nobody saw shit in Mexico Beach. Just slipped right by them. This is like the Biden administration, man. It reminds me so much of that. With the news, WMBB. What do you want us to say, Biden? Sheriff, what do you want us to say? Well, there's no corruption. Everybody's working hard. Nothing's going to get past us, not even $46 million. So $49 million, they said, was allocated for debris pickup. 46 million of it went to these companies here. And I think you can add Kaiser Kane Inc. as well. Again, Kaiser Kane in 2011 through 2013, the FBI hired Kaiser Kane. Kaiser Kane has hundreds of federal contracts over the years, and the FBI loves them. So does the sheriff, I think. So let's take a look at at the deal they got here. This is the actual contract right here. This is the task order, January of 2019. That's just about 2 months after the hurricane. So what happened was, rather than bidding it out for a whole bunch of really good, capable debris, they needed their debris picked up, but they gave it all to one guy. So this, I'm going to read this entire thing to you, okay? Reference is the task order. Reference is made to that certain agreement for contractor services, disaster debris removal and disposal services, dated December 17, 2018, about 2 months after the hurricane. And the terms and definitions which are incorporated herein, it's a long contract. It says that neither party is in breach of contract, blah, blah, blah. Pursuant to the agreement, contractor, singular, Mark Garrison, agrees to perform the specific tasks related to Hurricane Michael waterways debris removal within the city of Mexico Beach as set forth in the scope of work. Contractor, singular, total compensation shall be $10 million. That was just to get him started. Singular contractor. All right. And shall be invoiced no less frequently than weekly and as otherwise specified. Okay. Work shall begin immediately and shall continue either until the city deems Hurricane Michael waterways debris removal to be complete or until services have reached the main maximum cost specified above. There is no additional rights, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, and who signs it but Mayor Al Cathy, who was getting paid as the mayor because he owned Ace Hardware and he was a vendor while he was the mayor, and the city clerk was Adrian Welly. So they signed it. They got the guy going right away. But for how much? Well, let's look. Now remember that the FBI and Sheriff Tommy Ford discovered that the late Derwin White had conspired and colluded with attorney Adam Albritton, who was the city attorney in Lynn Haven, but was also at the same time Derwin White's lawyer. So Derwin White conspired with the big national hurricane disaster company, Ashbrit. So JC Contractors and Derwin White colluded with Randall Perkins, the owner of Ashbrit. And according to the FBI and Sheriff Ford, according to his investigation, and the FBI told a judge this same time in 2021, that Bay County is more corrupt than New Jersey and New Orleans, said the FBI, and based on Sheriff Ford's investigations. Are you with me? And that was, and by the way, both of those men have since died. Randall Perkins, who was in great shape, died unexpectedly a couple of weeks ago. So Randall Perkins and Ashbrit, according to the investigations, they were colluding with Derwin White and GAC, and they both died. And their rate was $4.70 per cubic yard. $4.70 was more corrupt than New Jersey and New Orleans. Mexico Beach's rate is 4 times that, $16.91. Mexico Beach was paying $17 per cubic yard. Who was counting that? Oh my. Now, if you look, there's even higher ones. All right. Now, you've got some when they had to remove refrigerators and freezers, that was $250 per. And then there were other, but basically for just vegetation, it was $17 per cubic yard. And in 2021, the FBI, based on Sheriff Ford's investigation in Lynn Haven and in Bay County, $4.70 was not the lowest bid. It was actually $3.50. But the county was working with Derwin White and the attorney Adam Albritton. And the whole time, Sheriff Ford and the FBI knew about this. How do I know? Because we have their investigation notes now. They all knew about this. And that was too high. But $17 per cubic yard in Mexico Beach, well, we got to get the work done, and it's very expensive. And there's no way to commit fraud, we've been told. By the way, in 2016, after a couple years after J.T. Burnett had sold it, and in Tallahassee, he was the businessman again, went to prison for racketeering, extortion, fraud, and making false statements at City Hall, along with the mayor over there, Scott Maddox. Remember all that? Well, then Kaiser Kane had a different owner, Mark Garrison. He had all these different companies, same guy, 4 different companies, $46 million. Okay, so kind of following along. But look at this. 2 years before that, Bay County. Oh, am I really going to do this? Yes, I have to. I have to do it. Bay County in 2016 awards Mark Garrison, Kaiser Kane Inc. That's yet a 4th company, a contract. So he's been kind of a favorite around these parts. And on the commission at that time in 2016 was Commissioner Mike Nelson. You see Mike Nelson on the left there, and he lost the election. He was old and not in great health, and how do you say it? He was losing his cognitive abilities and not in great shape, and grieving as well. And that was the end of his long tenure on the county commission, Mike Nelson, 2016, and he got beat by Tommy Ham in 2016. Well, my sources tell me that Mike Nelson was questioned by the FBI in 2016. And the next day, Commissioner Mike Nelson, according to the news here, died unexpectedly in his home. Now, that's all I heard, and I always thought it was kind of strange, but he wasn't in great health. I asked the sheriff's office about this, and I was told, well, Panama City was investigating this, because I heard later on that Mike Nelson had committed suicide. And I never wanted to bring this up out of respect for him and his family. And a lot of people loved him, okay? He was Derwin White's guy. How do I know? Derwin told me. That was his guy on the county commission. And then, even after I heard that Mike Nelson committed suicide, I was told that it was suicide by shotgun to his chest. And so I started asking about that. And I was told by the top brass at the sheriff's office that, yeah, well, we just don't know. It's just, Panama City handled that. Chief Irvin handled that. I hate having to tell you this stuff. But there were other deaths as well that I'm not going to tell you about. I'm really not. I can't. But this is something Mexico Beach and everybody needs to know. And the people on that commission the Adrian Welly, who decided, I guess, not to run again. He's not on the commission. He used to be the city clerk. He signed the contract. That's his name on the bottom left, January 2019. He knows all about this stuff. He says it was a damn good deal. It's a really good deal. And one thing that Michelle Miller, the mayor who defeated Al Cathy, that they tricked the Mexico Beach residents into recalling, and it was upheld by Judge James Goodman in an absolutely unacceptable and disgusting ruling. He allowed lies to be told in his courtroom, and he upheld it. And the residents of Mexico Beach still suffer and do not know these facts. And they will never hear these facts from WMBB or WJHG, because just like national news, they're in on, or at least they are the PR arm for those who know about this stuff and say that it's okay. It's maybe a little more expensive than we would have liked, but we didn't find any crime, and we had guys all over the place. Now, we were more focused in Lynn Haven, getting everybody to look at 79 counts that all went away because they were all lies. That's what we focused 5 years on, or 4, while this was really going on in Mexico Beach. See how deflection works? It was time for you to know. Here's one of the contract. Do you want to see? Well, I'll show you this. I'll make it bigger. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to show you they have a website. I want to show you this too. The actual contract. This is important. Is that the one I want you to see? Oh, by the way, it was Mario Gisbert. I'll show you that in a second. It was Mario Gisbert who was the city administrator at this time. There's so much more to that I'll save for later. Let me just try to stay on the important points here before I get sidetracked and lose you. But let's take a look at the actual website, the Kaiser Kane brochure. Now, remember, here we go. That's the website. Now, remember, though, there were different companies. Same guy owned them, but there were different companies. Kaiser Kane Storm LLC got $45 million. And then they had KK Storm LLC, Kaiser Kane Inc., Garrison Cattle, all these different companies, one guy. So why would they need all these different companies if it's just the same guy? I don't know. The answer to that, probably there's a good one. Why it's $17 an hour per cubic yard. Unbelievable. All right, let's go take a look at this now. This is the website. This is the Kaiser Kane Storm website, and they go all over, and boy, they have a lot of big contracts. Okay. Now, if you look close at the top, no, I can't make it any bigger, but that right above there, if you look at that, it's KK Storm brochure. So Kaiser Kane Storm and KK Storm, well, they're both owned by the same people. So it's not really two companies at all. I mean, it's two companies, but it's not like this company couldn't haul any more debris, so we got to get some big help. No, it's the same company. It's different names. See, their brochure is the same. And here's what they do. Look, they do that work. There they are, picking up the debris. And they're not doing it by pound or tonnage like they should. They're doing it by length. Who's counting it? Those guys up top are. They're operating it, I guess. Maybe they're not counting it. You got to have a separate counter. But one of the things in the what the FBI and the sheriff's office told the judge, the sheriff's office investigation notes, but the FBI signed it in 2021, is they said, yeah, the problem was a lot of these stuff wasn't being counted correctly because who's measuring it? You had a tape measure. So if you look down, This is their website, all this cool stuff, right? And there's again Mark Garrison. But your city is in here. Watch. Oh, here it is. You ready for this? Mexico Beach. And it says, you can see that. Okay. Look right in the middle here. Mario Gispert had just left in disgrace Panama City Beach, where he was the city manager. And he came over. I think about, what was it, about 2021? And became your city administrator. And they got a $32 million contract with Kaiser Kane, KK Storm. It's on KK Storm's brochure, but it was Kaiser Kane Storm. Okay. And you ready for this? What kind of work were they performing? How about this one? Private property debris removal. What? Can you see that? Private property debris removal? Isn't that what they accused Mayor Margot Anderson of doing? I was in the federal courtroom when Judge Mark Walker said that's not her property. She didn't do that. They had to drop the charges because they were lying. Now, a whole shit ton of other elected officials and big shots, they were getting private property debris removal. But we don't want to get into that right now. Actually, we do want to get into that right now. Look at that. It says it right there. Am I right or wrong? Right on the Kaiser Kane Storm, KK Storm brochure. It's a joint venture, I think is what they called it. And again, there's the guy that has all the companies. And Mario Senior Gispert. And all the stuff that they did. It goes on and on. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You can see for yourself. And all of the documentation, you'd have to pay an arm and a leg for it. You're not allowed to see it. Nobody's allowed to see it except for the 18 people. Anyway, but you're going to see it. You're going to see all of it. The long contracts, how much they paid for everything. Now, one of the things the recent legislative audit showed, and again, it only went back to 2021, 2022, and it was bad. Bad. I mean, all kinds of people had access, and I don't mean just read only. 18 people had access to the Springbrook software that these so-and-sos made a big deal of in 2023 and said nobody can get in there because there's sensitive information, for God's sake. 18 people had access, and most of them, or there were 18 accounts, rather, that were open, who God knows who, and people who hadn't been there for a decade, like Chris Hubbard. His account was open for 10 years. When they were talking about rehiring, his account had been open. And his girlfriend was the accountant. I'm not saying this, all of these things 100% show that there were any crimes committed. But you can have a hunch, and that's how an investigation normally starts, is with a hunch. Am I right or wrong? You say, Bernie, not around here. You got a point. You do have a point. So these guys said, no, she can't be in there. But the recent, and I mean recent, December, okay, legislative audit from the Auditor General of the state of Florida showed that all kinds of people were in that software program. All kinds of accounts. And I mean, it just goes on and on. And bids were and contracts were not bid out properly. But here's the big thing. They couldn't even show, Mexico Beach could not even show the Auditor General when they paid $1.2 million or so to, I think it was to Mark Garrison. Recently, they could not show that the debris had ever been picked up. Do you know what the city officials told the Florida Auditor General? They said the invoice is our proof. See, they said they would do it, therefore they did it. That's what the city said. They could not prove that they even received construction goods in in the last few years, and I think the construction goods were from Ace Hardware. $500,000 went to the mayor, who was also a vendor, owner of Ace Hardware, and the city could not show that they actually got the goods. They said the invoice shows it, and we'll find some pictures to show you. That's what Mexico Beach told the Auditor General, and they had a public relations campaign, the sheriff, state attorney, WMBB, all the elected officials, certain members of the public, lawyers. They all got together and tricked the voters of Mexico Beach. And Judge Goodwin upheld it. And now the residents of Mexico Beach are going to be stuck without a pier. They're going to have high prices, high property taxes, high fees. And you're going to hear these so-and-sos on the council say, oh, don't listen to the misinformation. Don't listen to the Auditor General of the state of Florida, and certainly don't listen to the internet. They can't even show they got goods and services. They can't even show that the debris was picked up and they were measuring it. Please hear this. If you hear nothing else, hear this. Whenever you see after a disaster, hurricane, tornado, when you see that the city is hiring debris pickup and they're doing it by cubic yard, immediately demand that they do it by weight, by pounds and tonnage. Or else the jig is up. All right. Again, I've known about this for more than a year. And if quite frankly, if the FBI were under the same leadership, and if the Justice Department and Homeland Security, because FEMA falls under Homeland Security. Homeland Security allows this to happen with all that money, which I don't understand, because imagine how many more spy devices they could buy and spy on us. You know what I mean? So now that I've always told you that protection rackets are a snapshot in time, eventually seats change, leadership changes, and it is right now. So I thought at least I have an obligation to let you know where the money went. And you can decide if it was well spent. And you can decide if it should have been bid out, or if one contract should be amended that leads to this. One contract amended to lead to that. You decide if it was well spent. That's on you. I didn't tell you about this, and there's a lot of things that I don't tell you about because it is very, very dangerous. I've had my last time they surrounded my home and accused us with 7 law enforcement officers and said we thought Bernie Thompson and Miss Sarah Moon and her son, we thought they had stolen AirPods, and we had exigent circumstance. We had to surround the home immediately, even though 4 months before I was on speed dial thinking I was cleaning up public corruption with the sheriff's office and the FBI. But no, I was being misled, and I misled you because of that. And I have an obligation to tell you the truth. Now, some of you found out about this just a little bit earlier, and I'll tell you why. It's because you have subscribed to my weekly newsletter. And those of you with a paid subscription, I'll show you what this is like here. I'll give you an example. Those of you who go to bernie.substack.com, $8 a month or $80 a year, okay, for the weekly newsletter, meaning you'll never miss a show. You don't even need to have Facebook, or, I mean, you can write in your email. Here is what subscribers saw earlier today as I was stressed out. So this is what you get. This is the behind the scenes you get with a paid subscription. It's just a taste of it. I'm going to tell you what I'm up to. This is a real behind the scenes video because I am stressed. I'm going to do a show tonight, and I've announced it. I posted on Facebook already that I'm going to reveal wow, They are everywhere. Oh my God. There are sheriff vehicles everywhere. I'm paranoid because, they follow me. I have people follow me all the time. How do I know? Trust me, I know. I know I'm a little paranoid. But I've turned around and followed some of these unmarked vehicles with blacked out windows. I followed them and they freak out. I mean, they take off, they go down side roads. It's crazy. But anyway, storm or something like that was investigated. So this is when I start kind of sorting this out earlier today, and I revealed to subscribers earlier in the day what I was going to do with his own money to the benefit of the city on 5-0. Enough of that. Enough of that. Anyway, that's all to say. If you'd like to support me and if you'd like to get behind the scenes videos, bernie.substack.com. That's where you go. It's a big deal. And you're going to love it, quite frankly. That's a big deal. Also, I want to thank, of course, the Unknown Patriot for your support. And for those of you who throw a tip in the tip jar at either PayPal or Patreon, it means a lot to me. I couldn't do it without you. I might as well tell you this too, since I'm on a roll. I know it's been hard to get a hold of me and get my undivided attention. I know that, but many of you have said, I really need to do it. And so I'm trying to keep this thing going. I'm trying to make a living. And so here's how you can get my undivided attention. And I'm telling you, those of you who have done it know it's really fantastic, because you can book a 30-minute call or an hour call if you go here, calendly.com/Bernie Thompson. It is easy. It is so easy. And there are times that you can schedule and say, this is for me and you, your full attention, and you will get it. Calendly.com/Bernie Thompson. And it doesn't have to be a tip. It can just be you want to find out more about citizen journalism. You want to know what I take out in the woods, which I can't wait for that call. I want to have a fun call. Okay, I really do. Doesn't always have to be so serious. Calendly.com/Bernie Thompson. All right, with all of that, I hope you'll share this. I hope you'll take notes. You're going to get all of the documents and you're going to see for yourself, because I think it's one of the most shocking stories I've ever heard anywhere. I mean, almost to the point where nobody would watch it if it was a movie, because it sounds so absurd.